just to clarify for people watching, I mean, do you ever think it's okay for a white person to put on blackface?
Old photos have surfaced of a Republican lawmaker dressed up in blackface, and he's had to come out and apologize for it. Sam Seder and Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report broke all this down. We're going to take a look at clips of Sam Seder and Emma Vigeland, as well as clips from CNN. I'll share my thoughts from time to time. This one's kind of a funny one. Let's get into it.
So Mike Lawler is running for New York 17th against Mondaire Jones. I'm not terribly thrilled with Mondaire Jones, to be honest with you. But it would be a Democratic vote in the House, which is a good thing. I mean, I don't know if we're going to see the same level of discipline with Democratic voters as we did during the Biden administration, but we certainly got some good pieces of legislation. The IRA, the infrastructure bill, the American Rescue Act, all very good pieces of legislation. Here is Mike Lawler apparently trying to explain, his use of blackface. And this is not an era I'm unfamiliar with. I mean, I remember when Ted Danson did it at some type of comedy routine at a Friars roast or something like that.
Here he is being Michael Jackson, which, given Michael Jackson's pigmentation for the last 20 years of his life, you could have really not done blackface and still been Michael Jackson for Halloween. He's apparently obsessed with Michael Jackson. As a teenager, flew to observe Michael Jackson's trial for sexually abusing a child, to stand with Michael Jackson during that period.
That's odd behavior. Do we have him on? Here he is on Caitlin Collins explaining it, I guess.
Before we get into the CNN clip of Caitlin Collins, I just wanted to say that's a great line from Emma Vigeland, that he wouldn't have had to have done the blackface probably in this era for Michael Jackson. But I think the biggest takeaway to me of this story is just the Republicans are weird. I mean, we all have our favorite musicians and actors and sports figures or whatever, but to dress up as that person to go across the country to a trial that they're involved in, like Sam Seder said, that is odd.
I first want to just give you a chance to address for our viewers, for your constituents, the choices that you made back when this photo was taken around October 2006.
Well, Caitlin, thanks for having me. Yesterday I attended the funeral for the father of a friend. And when we went to the cemetery to bury him, we were approaching, and it turns out his gravestone is going to be right behind my dad's. And on my dad's gravestone, it says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Obviously, I can't change what happened 18 years ago. But I certainly, with wisdom and age, understand that is not something I would do today, and certainly understand why people would be upset or offended by it. And for that, I'm sorry. But, for me, there was no ill intent. There was no effort to malign or make fun of or disparage Black Americans. It was really an effort to pay homage to somebody who was a musical idol for me. I've always loved Michael Jackson's music and his dance moves and his ability to entertain. Anyone who knows me knows that. And people who come visit my D.C. office can see today a Andy Warhol painting of Michael Jackson hanging in my office. So this was really not, what I think could truly be construed as blackface. But I certainly understand why people would be offended by it. And for that, I'm sorry.
Well, it seems clear from what you said, but just to clarify for people watching, I mean, do you ever think it's okay for a white person to put on blackface?
No, of course not. And, in this instance, I had, as I said to the New York Times, I had used a friend's bronzer, but again, obviously 18 years later, I certainly reflect upon and understand that how that can be construed. But I think there is a stark difference between dressing up for Halloween and paying homage to somebody you like and respect versus dressing up in blackface to demean and dehumanize black people, which is what minstrel shows and blackface, historically was about. And that's obviously not what I was doing there.
So this isn't the worst apology in the world. This isn't exactly the typical Republican thing of where they just double down and say, they don't care. Or, they'll just say, well, I'm sorry if you were offended, but, that kind of thing. So this isn't the worst apology ever by Mike Lawler. I think what he could have done better with this would have been to have just say, this is always unacceptable, and leave the stuff out about that he was trying to pay homage and not trying to do the same thing as a minstrel show that, is dehumanizing. I think he could have just left that part out and it would have been fine.
Yeah, and that's an important point is that, we have, when this has become a thing, we've seen it with other politicians. Ralph Northam of Virginia obviously was actually a Michael Jackson costume as well. It's because blackface does have such an ugly history. And you have 59,000 people, black people in your district. And so I just wonder, with your comment tonight, what would you say to one of them if you were speaking to someone who said, that really bothers me that happened once?
I'm starting with the man in the mirror.
Certainly, and I have spoken to many of my constituents today, and in discussing it with them, and certainly understand how someone would take offense. And for that, I do apologize because, to me, obviously, given the history in America and given what we have seen with slavery, with racism, and
I think, look, this is, I think he made a reasonable recovery. I think, I mentioned Ted Danson before. I guess that was in the 80s, and it was at a roast for his then girlfriend, Whoopi Goldberg. And I don't know that people were as sensitive to it. I do think it's weird for someone to be doing that, as Michael Jackson. You can obviously do a costume without, making it clear that you're going as Michael Jackson, I guess. But I think he at least, addressed it. All his other policies are garbage, and he is a vote for the worst of the Republican Party. But I think that's the best way that you can respond to that.
If you want to make
I wouldn't do it today.
A better place, take a look at yourself and make the change.
You should have said that.
That's from the We Are the World.
It's Man in the Mirror.
Show them how funky and strong is your fight.
That's right,
Mike Lawler, and just beat it.
I honestly almost think the real worship of Michael Jackson is
weirder.
Is stranger than the bronzer itself.
Yeah.
But as Michael always told us, it doesn't matter if you're black or white or bronze, for that matter.
So great lines from Emma Vigeland here. She steals the show on this, steals it from actual comedian Sam Seder. I agree with them that the fact that he was this super fan Michael Jackson fan is almost weirder than the actual blackface itself. And Mike Lawler, I'm not that familiar with him, and they're saying, he's the worst kind of vote. I wonder if Mike Lawler is the typical family values candidate, family values Republican kind of guy. And I'm not saying anything, but I'm just saying, I wonder what other kind of costumes he's dressing up in behind closed doors. Could be totally wrong, but I just kind of wonder about what other proclivities Mike might have. What do you think? Let me know in the comments if you think that he's still dressing up as Michael Jackson in private, or maybe dressing up as other characters. I don't know. Maybe too much speculation on my part, but this definitely seems like a strange guy. Not the worst apology in the world. I agree with Sam Seder on that. He did fine, I think. I really think that a guy like this can just go with, I was young and stupid. I didn't understand the ramifications of dressing in blackface, but now I understand, and I'm going to serve my constituents. I think that's all you have to do is leave it with that. But what do you think? Make sure to give me a comment about Mike Lawler, this particular case, somebody dressing up as Michael Jackson, including blackface. Oh, one thing that I almost forgot. I heard someone else talking about this story, just a caller on a show, and they said, you know, you never see black people dressing up as Superman, say, for example, or David Bowie. If you had a black person who dressed up as David Bowie, who's very white, when do you ever see a black person wear whiteface? Even in terms of entertainment, the only time that I can ever think of that is there was a Saturday Night Live skit where where Eddie Murphy dressed up as a white character and they had white makeup, you know, on his face and everything. So that's the only time that I can really ever think of that. Maybe Dave Chappelle has done it too. I'm not sure. But I thought that was a really good point, that you don't see the reverse of this where there are black people dressing in whiteface. But make sure to leave me a comment about Mike Lawler, about Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland, the Majority Report, anything you want to comment about, particularly this story. Do you think there was real ill intent by this guy, or is he just kind of a weird Michael Jackson superfan? Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. The channel's, I'm closing in on 25,000 subscribers. The channel's growing really quickly, and it's all due to your comments, likes, and subscribes. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to do so. This is Chris on Culture. I will see you in the next video.